everybody. We're back with EI Publishing, talking about ancient texts.
Ancient texts. So it's actually funny. The first thing I like to ask you, Julie, is you wrote down ancient texts. People are going to think they're the texts that we sent like a year ago, over an iPhone. That's not the text we're referring to.
The ones we sent a couple of years ago on the little flip phones.
Yeah, so this is something that you and I have talked about doing for a while, and I just like to ask you a few questions. Give me a little bit of an idea of the premise behind this.
Well, I think we're both avid readers, and I enjoy going as far back into the energy of the source of material. And so it's always great when you can go all the way back to whatever is as ancient as before, not as it's been interpreted and translated, but just the energy of the vibration of what the conversation is.
So when people read any book, it doesn't even have to be ancient. When you read any type of someone's manuscript, you read it, you read the words, but somehow something else inside you is saying something more. And a lot of times you can't decipher that. And that's not ancient. That's even, like I said, with today's books. If you read some of these really good, thought-provoking books, you read it and something else is kind of stirring within you. And so when we talk about interpreting some of these ancient books, it's not we're going to give you a history of what was going on at the time. We're not going to define it in terms of, well, this is what the writer was saying. We're actually going to go in and explore that idea of what are you hearing? You're reading something, but there's something more to it. And you like to call that, not to put words in your mouth, but these are your words, kind of reading between the lines.
Right.
In the space between.
The space between. And sometimes it's between the actual paragraphs, sometimes it's between the actual chapters, and sometimes it's between the actual books as per what dates they were recorded or said to be recorded.
And some of the other interesting points, when you and I sit down to talk about these, and we read them and what you're really hearing, it's actually interesting because we sort of hear a lot of the same thing, and we believe a lot of people out there are also hearing something. And a lot of times it's just, how do I interpret that? What does this really mean? And we talk about the Bible, and one of the we're going to look at some Norman Vincent Peale and Neil, I forget the other.
Goddard. Neil Goddard.
Napoleon
Hill.
Communion with God. Neil. You know who he is. I'm sorry. He's going to hear this and say, I'm going to slap that girl. So, but what it is they're even looking at the Bible and they're taking the passages and they're reinterpreting them. And when you hear that, something stirs within you and there's a truth in that. And you're like, oh, wow, this is so much more powerful than just the written word. And most people take just the written word and they hang on to the words and they don't go beyond that. But when people have that conversation, there's something that stirs within you, and that's really what the exploration is within these podcasts.
And I think the funny thing is some of the people you mentioned aren't really ancient.
No.
And so in the realization of what the ancient term is, to me, it's going as far back to the simplicity of what is said and transcribed and related. It's almost a metaphorical speech. It's like mythology. And then you present the picture yourself as you're reading it, and you ascertain more knowledge and wisdom while you're reading it. It's just something that vibrationally occurs with you. Because as we know, there's a lot of self-help stuff out that has regurgitated certain tiny little aspects and then put some drama to it, and that's not ancient.
No.
And so the parts of materials and research that go into not necessarily the translation, yes, but not necessarily a full interpretation with judgment of what something means. It's more so the energy and vibration that's just shared, and it's gets shared generically. Like, for example, where we had been working on a podcast on Lao Tzu, Tao Te Ching, And just reading those things spontaneously, together as we're discussing them, there's a whole different energy and vibration to what your interpretation is.
And the important part, I believe, is that that's where real life exists. When you're just listening to someone else's interpretation and someone else is saying, this is what it means, now let me tell you my story, it's actually very distancing. You feel as though someone else has, quote, the secret that you are missing. And that's because someone else learned something, but then they twisted it and put it in their words. We're not interested in doing that. We talk about ourselves and what we're learning because hopefully that engages you to explore your own feelings, and there'll be things that you say, oh my gosh, yeah, that I can resonate with that. And there's going to be things that you say, wow, they said this, but I'm getting this. And that's really what the goal of these podcasts are. These podcasts aren't Julie and I saying to you, this is what it means, this is what you have to do. We're going in and we feel the power when we discuss it, and we're sharing it because you're going to get something and you're going to go with it. And then all of a sudden, it's no longer someone else's life that you're outside looking at saying, wow, look at, they figured out a secret that I don't know. You're going to sit back and say, wow, wait a minute, this is moving something in me and I feel it, and that's part of me. And then you now move into that space. And that's what makes it fun. It makes it so much freaking fun when we do that.
And that's finding your truth. Because when you're taking someone else's interpretation, enhanced with their judgment and their drama and their personal stories, it gets all discombobulated as to what the truth is.
Right.
And the vibration of the really cool, just natural principle that's in there gets lost.
Yes. So this is actually a start in helping people to become unlost, because as I said to you earlier, Julie, this morning, is that if you look at people who appear, because I don't like to say I know these people, but appear powerful, appear to have what they want, to appear, I guess society would define as being successful. If you go to the core of it, when you listen to them talk about their life and their experiences, they are just themselves. And when someone is themselves to such an extreme, you can't help but be successful in your definition of success. It doesn't have to be society's definition. And I believe more people are not in their definition, quote, successful. It's because they don't know who they are. And if you don't know who you are, you don't even have a beginning, a way of deciding what's important to me, what's not important to me. And a lot of these books, if you really go to them, it's not religious dogma. It's really a higher interpretation of God, of energy. I like to use energy, universe, God, interdisperse. Exactly.
And so the funny thing about that too is that when you go to these texts, it's your truth that comes out from inside of you, based in all those layers that you've amassed of baggage as you walk around and beside and between everybody that exists here, and encompassing, all their stories and all their drama, and then whatever your involvement is. And this is taking off all the layers, and whatever from those ancient texts that propels you is what's important. So it's not like you have to read the whole Bhagavad Gita. You have to read the whole Bible. It's whatever jumps out at you. And that's really cool. One of the things we're going to discuss is Norman Vincent Peale took out 40 phrases and statements from the Bible, and then talked about how their energy was really, really intense.
So the last thing I would like to say that I think is really important, Julie and I wrote a book, Energetic Invocations, a book of vibrational change. And that was something we did because we needed to. We needed to unpeel. Julie's talking about unpeeling layers of stories and things you've been told and what you have to believe and who you are. And we had to go through that process for ourselves to take off all those layers ourselves. And we wrote it. And what happened is then we started saying, how do we live now? Now that we know the truth, and we're not all these things that people told us, we know who we are, and we're still learning. And this became a labor of love for us to go into, like, how do you live differently when you finally cleared all the quote baggage? And we are sharing this. Julie and I are doing this regardless, and we're going to do it, and we know how powerful it is. And the only thing I can say is we've been asked, how do we share this? And honestly, this is the only way I know how to do it, because I'm going to do it. I know Julie's going to do it because I'm going to push her whether she wants to or not until she kicks me out.
I've been doing it forever.
And so this is our way of sharing it. So if you enjoy it, awesome. If you don't, that's fine. You know what? Keep searching, because your answer's out there. What you need, you will find.
And going back to the ancient texts, whatever you pick up, whether it be the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, something from those great people in the 1950s, like D.M. Fortune, Manly Hall, who was Charles Hannell, Napoleon Hill, they were all kind of in there trying to figure out, they're talking about energy, and they're sharing about, Think and Grow Rich. They apply it to money. Yet there's principles in there that can align with you, that can help divulge your truth. And it's not like it's every single aspect of what they say, but whatever hits you. And there's stuff on YouTube where people have posted, their conversations, or I don't know where they've gotten their presentations. But there's a lot of resources. There's stuff online with sacred texts. And you just go in there, and whatever metaphors kind of hit you, because once again, as I always say, mythologically and symbolically, it's hitting your unconscious.
Right.
And your unconscious is going to go, oh yeah, hey, hello.
So keep us in mind. Not, if you listen to it or not, it's not going to change what I'm going to do. Yet, it would be nice to have a conversation with like-minded people, that people are really interested in doing something different. So if you find this fascinating, if you find other venues, other media out there, share it with us. We'd love to hear from you.
And the other cool thing is, if you find it fascinating, share it with your friends. We're having a conversation. A lot of people have said to us, I'd love to be in on your conversations. So now all you folks can. And it's an interesting energy and vibration that you can propel from having this kind of energized conversation. And so once again, it's Energetic Invocations, a book of vibrational change. And there's the high octane version, and then there's the version with Process This that has some examples from the real world in it. It's nothing related to us, which is great. So there's none of our drama or anything in there, but it's for each individual reader to experience it and divulge their own truth.
And so feel free to like and become
Share.
A follower of these podcasts as well. These are free. And again, we're opening the conversation.
And as we started this podcast, streaming live, I played some great new music from New Threads. And so we're going to exit on that. And it's called Alone, Leave Me from New Threads.